Hey there, YouTube. I'm Ikitsu. This is Ikitsu Times. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to a little bit of Sins of Solar Empire 2. So today we're talking about the Iconus Guardian, which is a very important ship for the Advent. This is what makes Advent actually kind of tough. Their aesthetic, their design, the way that they sort of function individually, their ships are not normally what you would look at and say that they're rugged, durable, and almost impossible to kill, but the reality is a late game Advent blob can get really, really scary really, really fast. And part of it's because it can be really hard to actually kill some of the ships that they've got. And the Iconus Guardian is a really big part of that. Now, you can actually still kill Advent ships. It's not like they're invincible or anything like that. But you can't necessarily just go and brute force your way through them with a lot of damage like you can with everyone else's ships. It is still possible. It's just harder than it looks by quite a bit. So anyway, let's take a look at this thing here. Has a durability of 200. It's got 3,000 shield points and it's got 1,350 hull points, as well as 350 antimatter. No armor strength, but a hidden speed stat of 800. Just as a note here, the Iconus Guardian is a fairly inexpensive ship. It's a support type ship, but this is more hit points in total and more effective hit points in total than the Cortovus Oppressor, or the Destro Crusader, or the Harka. It's an extremely durable ship for the amount of that you're spending on it. The only cruiser that I could find that has more hit points than it was the Area Drone Host, and that's basically because the Area Drone Host is the same sort of hit point total as 1.5 Percherons or 1.5 Lacerat Transporters. It's a very, very, very expensive ship compared to the Iconus Guardian. So the Iconus Guardian doesn't have any weapons, and its abilities are kind of weird. So let's take a look at the most important one here. This is shield projection. It has a cooldown of 1 second. It has a range of 7,500. It costs 15 antimatter to cast. And what it does is it redirects damage from the target to itself. It can affect up to a maximum of 6 targets, and it has a duration of 5 minutes, which is a huge amount of time. So the point of this is that you can have an Iconus Guardian target a bunch of your ships there, and what'll happen is all the damage that would go to those guys gets divided in two, and then split over to the Iconus Guardian, which basically just takes it to its shields. It doesn't actually die from this. It doesn't get hit on its hit points there. And what you're functionally doing is making it so that whatever ships are sort of getting hit by your opponent, those ships have twice as many effective hit points. Whatever durability applies is based on the target that's taking the actual damage. So the Iconus Guardian's 200 durability applies for the damage that the Iconus Guardian is taking, and the target's durability applies to theirs. So you can't really have the 200 durability jump to whatever other ship, but that doesn't usually matter because most things are 200 or more. And also, like, if you've got a really durable ship, you're not taking increased damage by using this. So sort of like just actual even split 50-50, and then you take the damage on. So yeah, shield projection is the reason that so many of the Advent things are deceptively tough. If you've got like just one of these guys and you've got like a bunch of disciples or what have you, those disciples are suddenly a lot harder to kill in that sort of like early game fight. You've got maybe say a dozen disciples versus a dozen Revestra skirmishers, but because of the price differential, you're also able to sneak in an Iconus Guardian. Well, you functionally have doubled the hit points of one of your disciples, maybe even a couple of them actually in practice. So in that instance, you've made it so that the Iconus Guardian is basically making it so your damage per second stays as high as it was for that entire time. Very, very effective at keeping your capital ships alive as well. If they're getting focused fire down, a lot of that damage is going to end up getting sucked up by Iconus Guardians. Just very, very powerful ability. The other one here is the Mend ability. This one is basically a simple heal. It's not the most efficient heal out there, but it is still very good. It has a cooldown of 5 seconds, range of 7,500, costs 25 antimatter, and it just instantly heals 25 hull or armor. Obviously better if you're able to heal armor with this, but it's pretty okay even if you're just healing hull. The problem with this is that if you compare it to, like, say, the Hoshiko Robotics Cruiser, this is way less health per antimatter. In fact, it's very, very inefficient for that. But it's not a heal over time effect. And what's kind of nice about that is you can have, like, 10 Iconus Guardians all casting Mend on a capital ship, and they'll just heal at 250 hit points right away. And then 5 seconds later, you can do that again, you can do that again, you can do that again. And this is one of the fastest ways to heal up a target. It's just incredibly antimatter inefficient. You could get away with using acolytes for this purpose, but I'm not sure that just having acolytes just so that you can use mend a little bit more often is really the best way of going about it. You could, of course, also have the brilliance array. If that's going on, then these guys can cast mend a lot more frequently, even if not quite on cooldown. So all in all, this is a very good package for keeping your ships alive. There are certain things that can counter what it's doing there, notably these Solarcan Tyrant is probably one of the best counters to the Iconus Guardian out there. But there's a lot of situations where this is going to just extend the longevity of your fleets by an absolutely huge amount, with relatively little that your opponent can actually do to completely stop you from doing that. Even antimatter drain is a little bit tricky. These guys have very deep antimatter pools. 350 is a lot considering they're spending 15 to use shield projection. So it would take an awful lot of Dunovs to actually drain these guys down to the point where they couldn't cast. And it wouldn't take them that long to recover their antimatter, possibly before the Dunovs were capable of firing off another volley of EMPs. So the Iconus Guardian virtually guaranteed to be able to get to do what it's doing there. So let's take a look at the techs here. Like I mentioned, we do have the heal that does unlock as a unique tech at tier 3. So that's something you're going to want to unlock for these guys. For the energy tree, you're looking at two important sets of upgrades. Obviously, the hit points from the shield projection bonuses are really good. Just the basic one itself is an extra 300 hit points. That's a lot of extra hit points, and you can go all the way up to that plus 40% there for an extra 1,200 in total. Very, very strong in terms of the amount they're getting from that. But arguably, you get more value out of the secondary shield generators. The shield burst is one of the ways that these guys recover their shields so they can continue doing what they're doing after a short sort of break. And if you've got enough of these guys, like some of the ones that are not damaged can take over, and then ones that are get their shield burst, go back into the fight, and so on and so forth, and goes back and forth there. Now, you might think that it's difficult to just keep these guys alive, because what an opponent will do is just focus fire them down. I'm not actually convinced that it's a smart idea to focus fire down the Iconus Guardians. They already, like I said, have more hit points than any other cruiser except for the Aria drone host. And as a result, they're surprisingly difficult to kill, even though they've only got 200 durability, even though they don't have any armor. It takes a surprising amount of firepower and a surprisingly long time to actually get rid of one of these guys. You can do it if you've got enough like Cobalts, or you got enough Reverse Skirmishers, or you got enough Disciples, but it's a long slog to actually get rid of one of these guys. And what makes it worse is, as you can see, whatever, they're a valid target for the Iconus Guardian shield projection. So Iconus Guardians can protect one another, and they can also mend one another, making it so that if you do decide to focus fire an Iconus Guardian, you're not trying to choose through 4,350 hit points there. You're trying to get through 8,700 hit points. That's almost as much as a capital ship. So trying to sort of break that means that you're firing at an Iconus Guardian for a really long time, and at the end of that, you will kill it. But by that time, your opponent could have brought in some more Iconus Guardians, and what's more important is that even after you get rid of this, they've still got all of their damage per second, and they've probably been destroying your damage per second during that time. So a lot of the time, Iconus Guardians are not necessarily the thing you want to actually go after with your damage. Because getting rid of them is very, very difficult. And in that time that you did spend to sort of like destroy this thing, even though they're taking like less damage, even though they're doubling their effective hit points, you could have killed 3 Disciples in that same time period, and you would have done a whole bunch of damage to the Iconus Guardian, dropping its shield points, putting it out of the fight because it runs out of shield points and it stops deflecting damage. It will get that damage back when it gets that shield burst, though. And that's why you may want to consider going after them first, but it's still usually going to be better for you if you go after the damage per second output. It's hard for me to make a definitive judgment, and it's going to vary by sort of your situation there, but Iconus Guardians, like just getting back 100% of their shields, basically, it's not really that, but getting back a whole bunch of their shields whenever the shield burst goes off coming back into the fight, healing up all their stuff, or deflecting a bunch of damage, you're going to end up in a situation that can be very, very cost effective at keeping your other ships alive there. And not only that, but like the Iconus Guardian also really meshes well with the shield burst abilities, because the shield burst abilities on the target that is actually getting shot at are more likely to go off if they're being protected by Iconus Guardians, because they're surviving with their hull and their armor for twice as long. They're much more likely to be alive long enough for the shield restoration to kick in. Very, very powerful all-around ability set for this, and I think that I would say that the burst is more important than the baseline shields for the Iconus Guardians. They do kind of need a little bit of the antimatter bonus there, just because if you're going for the heal, that can actually drain their antimatter very, very quickly. But other than that, if you're just going for the damage redirection, it's not that important. There's no reason not to get the heal, though. The only exception, again, is if you're up against the Slark and Tyrant, in which case the heal can actually cause you to self-destruct a little bit there. But other than that, it's pretty much fine. The other bonuses here are in substance. Getting access to the health bonuses can be good for these guys. Just keep them in the fight a little bit longer. They do take incidental damage just from enemy ships that sort of go off script and start attacking them, or your opponent decides to use big AoEs or something like that. They can take some damage, or your opponent really does decide that they honestly do want to focus fire down one of your Iconus Guardians. That could also help in that situation there. As far as Harmony Research goes, you got nothing for these guys with the Advent Wrath. They don't really benefit them at all. However, you do get a benefit from Advent Reborn, where you're capable of getting the shield regeneration in combat. And that's going to make this gigantic shield point pool here extend even longer. It's going to make it so that they can keep healing more targets for even longer. Very, very effective there. We didn't talk about the price for this thing. They're actually not that expensive. It's 7 supply, 450 credits, 90 metal, and 135 crystal. And for what you're getting out of these guys, having a ratio of like however many of these guys you happen to want into whatever it is you're doing, it's a fantastic addition to your forces in terms of like increasing the longevity of your fleets. I usually try to aim to have like a good handful of these, but honestly, like, you could go pretty crazy with them. You could get quite a lot of them and have that actually be a core part of what makes your army tick if you really wanted to, especially if you're going very heavy on the capitals, in which case having a bunch of Iconus Guardians with the heal, making it so that these guys are capable of getting a lot of value off of that would be really, really difficult to crack through. So as far as Unity goes, there's nothing really in Advent Wrath that benefits these guys tremendously. Strictly speaking, you're going to want to just pair these guys with other ships. The Iconus Guardian is pretty useless by itself. So it depends on what you're sort of keeping with the Iconus Guardians that's going to make it so you decide what unity they take. So obviously if you've got like lots of capital ships, then Avatar could be really good. If you've got like a few really big ships, but you're up against a swarm of enemies, then Fury could be really good. If you're up against a situation where your opponent is using missiles, you can use the Chastise ability to make it easier to shoot them down, any of those sort of things, but it really depends on what you're pairing this with. Typically, I don't pair these guys, though, with carriers, so you're going to see this with the Chastise ability a lot less than the other ones. For Advent Reborn, Cleanse is kind of interesting with these guys. If you've got a whole ton of Iconus Guardians that have somehow gotten to low shields, and you've got one that just for whatever reason has got high shields, you can actually cleanse one of the Guardians, and what will happen is all of your other Guardians will suddenly have really good shields. And this could actually, as a net result, make it so that your entire forces are a lot more durable during a time where you might be waiting for a whole bunch of shield bursts, which might take a minute. This sort of expedites that process just a little bit there. Generally speaking, though, like Iconus Guardian not having any armor, not having the best hull points, just having a lot of shields, it really only matters if you want to, for some reason, give your capital ships a bunch of shields. But since the Iconus Guardian kind of gives away shields to other capitals, it kind of doesn't really matter there. The reason it doesn't matter as much for cleansing a Guardian for other targets is that it's giving away way too many shield points. None of your cruisers or frigates are going to really respect or appreciate that, because it's going to overfill their shield slot to the point where they're just wasting a whole bunch of it. So I don't think this is the best target for a cleanse, but they're an okay target. I'm much more likely to actually pick something like, say, a Vigilus, in the middle of all this, because it'll heal the Iconus Guardian back up to a decent amount of shields, all the Iconuses around it. It's less likely to be getting directly targeted by the enemy, and it's going to also give hull points and armor points to like all the ships around it as well. So it's a little bit of a better choice for that. The other options are the recall ability. That's not really that important for the Guardian. It's just going to come along for the ride if you're calling something else along with it. The sacrifice ability does not work with the Iconus Guardians. They've got their protection down on whatever it is they've got it down on, but since sacrifice is like a one frame ability, if you've got a whole ton of say acolytes or something like that that you want to protect with the Iconus Guardian, you have to sort of like manually cast the protection on all of those acolytes before you hit sacrifice, which is just impractical, not really that possible for you to do. So generally speaking, if you're using sacrifice, it's not going to be the Iconus Guardian's not going to be able to really protect you against that effect. So you just have to sort of do that and suck up the losses like you normally would. The other thing that you can use is, of course, Resurrection. If you've got a fleet centered around using a lot of Iconus Guardians, you probably actually aren't going to find that you're losing as many ships as you normally would. So I would actually focus more on Cleanse. Now, Resurrection could be useful, but if you're only getting back a handful of ships, it's a bit too costly. So having access to that could be good, but I would rather have other abilities with my Unity in that particular case there. So that's largely what there is about this. I think there's a couple mentions that we have to make here. So this is one of those ships that, again, does nothing on its own, but it does pair okay with the Acolytes, and it pairs very well with the Acolytes once you go for Mend. I think that those are really sort of good things to be able to use with it. Alternatively, the Brilliance Array really helps these guys out, because if they're using their heals and you've got a really powerful Brilliance Array, you can make it so that they're casting heal virtually on cooldown. Not quite, but that combined with some Acolytes definitely could. The other thing that they work extremely, extremely well with is the Mothership. If the Mothership is healing, say, 100 shields per second, which that a bit high, but for argument's sake, they're healing 100 shields per second, your target is getting like hit for 100 damage. This guy's getting hit for 100 damage. What's going to happen is that that target and the Iconus are both healing back that full value, like because of the Mothership. If you didn't have that Mothership there, that first target would be taking 200 damage, and you'd be healing back half the health that's taking. So you'd be healing back half the damage it's taking. Whereas with the Mothership and the Guardian working together, you're healing back 100% of the damage instead of 50%. And it's basically doubling the effects of the heal, because you're forcing your opponent to spread their shield damage across two different targets, or multiple different targets if you've got a bunch of Guardians and you've got a bunch of different things that are all getting hit there. So you can make it so that you're getting really, really, really high value out of the Mothership's shield regeneration, which you normally might not, because, again, this game, you really want to be focusing your fire. If your opponent is redirecting 100% of their shots straight into one target, then normally the Mothership's heal rate is pretty, like, mediocre. Even making it so that it's healing two different targets makes it substantially better, and the fact that you can have multiple Iconus Guardians, some of which will start taking over once the first one runs out of shields, means you can actually heal through a very large amount of focus fire in that particular case. But yeah, that's pretty much everything there is to say about the Iconus Guardian. It's a crucial part, I think, of a lot of Advent combinations. The only exception, in my opinion, is carrier fleets. They don't really need it. But yeah, this is just probably the strongest of the core support ships in the game. I think it's better than Serevan Overseer. I think it's better than the Hoshiko Robotics Cruiser, and I don't even think it's a close contest. I think that this is just way better than those other two. So in any event, though, hope you found this one enjoyable, and of course, as always, hope to see you guys all next time.